losers, this is Isaac and welcome back to Isaac Reviews 2024. Mean Girls is probably one of the most iconic pieces of mid-2000s pop culture, and for good reason too. It's admittedly not perfect to be sure, but the memorable characters and humor make for an overall worthwhile coming-of-age story. And now, 20 years later, Tina Fey is taking us back to North Shore High School with a musical adaptation of the film. Well, technically it's based on the stage musical from 2017 that Fey wrote the book for, but feature-length adaptations of stage musicals have been becoming more popular in recent years, albeit to varying results, and given how the original Mean Girls turns 20 this year, I could see why Paramount jumped on the opportunity to make this movie. However, I wouldn't say I had the highest expectations going into it. I didn't think it'd be anything terrible, but I don't know, I just wasn't really vibing with it. Although this is one of the few times in recent memory where a movie released in January actually got a fair amount of hype. I mean, it was released during a 3-day weekend, and I guess we needed something to hold us over while we waited for all the bigger and better looking movies coming out in March. So I went into Mean Girls 2024 not necessarily dreading it, but also not anticipating it either. But as for the end result, well, it was fine, I guess. The story is more or less the same as last time, with a few changes of course, since I don't think jokes about incest or casual uses of homophobic and ableist slurs would be seen as appropriate in today's society. Anyways, if you somehow don't know the story of Mean Girls, it's about Katie Heron, an African immigrant who's been homeschooled her entire life but is now starting her first year of high school. Initially, she's befriended by social outcasts Janice Imiike and Damian Hubbard, but later becomes a hit with the Plastics, a trio of popular girls led by school bully Regina George. Despite initially falling into the Plastics' good graces, Katie would make the fatal mistake of falling in love with Regina's ex, Aaron Samuels. So as Janice and Damian task Katie with taking down the Plastics from the inside, she has to learn how to stay true to herself, all while navigating the chaotic landscape that is high school. If there's one thing that had me interested regarding Mean Girls 2024, it was the fact that it was a musical, which is something that the trailers didn't seem to highlight very well. But personally, I feel like this is a story that really fits the musical genre, and the songs themselves are really good. Sure, they're mostly just ported from the 2017 musical with only one new song, What Ifs, but they're very well written and catchy, the singing is great, and the choreography is fantastic. Like, I could tell the actors and dancers were having a blast filming the musical numbers. I also gotta give some props to the new actresses they got, especially the leads, Angourie Rice and Renee Rapp. In terms of both their singing and acting, they both do a great job with the materials they're given, and they work off each other and the other actors really well. Unfortunately, even if I enjoyed the movie's presentation, the same doesn't apply to the script. I know Tina Fey returned to write this movie like she did with the first one, but something about this version just feels off. Maybe it's the new humor and dialogue not being as sharp as before, maybe it's the tone and pacing having no coherent structure, maybe it's the ending not feeling anywhere near as strong as the 2004 movie, with this one just having Katie briefly reconciling with everyone she hurt before we get a standard dance party ending that we've seen a million times before. I don't know. All I know is that this version of the story is far from the best one we've had. And the biggest reason as to why that is, like I just mentioned, is in how it adapts the overall story. Major events are written much weaker and less impactful than before, and the film hardly has any worthwhile changes to fully justify its existence, other than removing the slurs and incest jokes, that is. The only other major change I can think of is that it's a musical, and it does a good job on that front to be sure, but sadly that does little to make up for how dull everything else about Mean Girls 2024 is. I certainly wouldn't call it bad, especially compared to some other musicals that have come out in the last few years, but it's certainly not good either. Of course, the musical numbers are a lot of fun, but in addition to that, the acting is great, the direction is okay, the costumes and sets are well designed, and it still retains its predecessor's message about just how pointless high school drama is. But like I said, Mean Girls 2024 isn't done many favors by how dull it is, both as an adaptation and as a remake, making it have very little identity to make itself stand out from its predecessor. If you're a fan of the original Mean Girls, then I'd suggest sticking to that. But I'm sure you might find some substance in this one if you decide to watch it either theatrically or when it arrives on Paramount+. Mean Girls 2024 is kinda like plastic itself. It's shiny and looks cool at first, but once you see past that, it's just boring. Therefore, I'll be giving this movie a 5.5 out of 10. I doubt it'll be sitting with my memory much longer either. Next time, I'm not too sure what I'll be talking about. Oh yeah, I guess there's that one Amazon Prime movie coming out called The Underdogs, and I guess I might as well watch something that could make my worst movies of 2024 list next year. Yeah, it looks really stupid, but at least I should be able to cleanse my palate the following week with Argyle. Anyways, thanks for watching this episode of Isaac Reviews 2024, subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!